Today, we're going to talk about understanding your market, your market size, your share, and your opportunity. And really, this is about what you could do. I think it really focuses on the opportunity and your potential and what you can actually work to do. But before we start, I want to talk just very quickly about Guido Scientific. We're a team of 7 consultants. We have 3 senior consultants and business development people and some apps people. And we help scientific companies launch their business if they're new startups, or strengthen if they're working already and they want to get a little bit better, or accelerate if they want to sell. We operate with some people who either sell or buy companies as well. And that's what we do. So if you're interested in us, look us up at the end, but that's my little promo bit there. I think I get something for free, right? So today, how are you going to grow in your markets? And it's markets, right? You might have a market, you might have multiple markets. If you've got lots of products and your company's really big, you're probably operating in multiple markets. And we'll look today at things like definition of markets. We'll look at how to work out sizing and sharing. But critically, the bit today is we've got to control how you're going to get better. Because everyone wants to get better. We can all do things to be better. How are we going to control what are the best things to do get better? And which bits are they actually impacting? Why are we doing it? Well, okay, because really simply, if you understand your market size, and you are in a market, I want people to understand they are in markets. They don't exist outside of markets. These things are real. But if you understand your market size, you understand your potential. If you understand your market share, all we're really telling you is your current position and what's available still to get. The controls are the most important bits for me because they're the ways that you can actually get your growth. They're actually how you're going to increase your revenue. So we're going to focus on that. But who needs to know any of this stuff? Well, for me, the little program we're going to use later on is something called PPH. And we use this at Roper, and we used it all the way through from senior management who had to justify to their teams why they were buying a company or why they were launching a product. Same for product managers. Why are we entering the market? Why do we need to have all this information? Through to salespeople who are trying to set quotas for people, or regional managers who are trying to work out, hey, I'm selling in France. What's my opportunity in France? All the way through, you're going to need to know a little bit about markets and what you control and what impact you're going to have as you do this. So we'll start off with like market definitions. And our objective of looking at market definitions is to work out what your market is. And I really would like you to end up with a sentence that says something like, we're in the market that helps customers do ... And that thing being a job. And we'll talk about the job bit. It's really an important bit on the market definition. Because the first thing is, it's not an industry. People like to say, we're involved in the life science industry. Well, the life science industry is immense. You know, I do a lot of reviews for companies selling, and they'll say, I'm in the defense market. The defense market's this. No, the defense industry's that. Just think if you made like car headlamps or headlights, if you want to think of them like that, right? You're in the automotive industry, but you're in the market of supplying headlights to car manufacturers. That's the market you're in. And it's much easier if you're looking at a smaller chunk within a market. It's a lot more believable to think you're $5 million in a $100 million market than $5 million in a $3 billion market. I've lost interest. You're lying. There's no potential here. You have no control. So the first thing is, it's not an industry. We're looking at markets. The second thing is, markets are differentiated by communication. And by this, I mean, actually, I'll give you an example. I used to sell cameras into a market, and we would call it Lightsheet. It was an application called Lightsheet. And there were people at universities who would buy cameras to do this application Lightsheet. And they sat in buildings with people that did an application called super resolution stochastic imaging, right? And they talked to each other. And because they talked to each other, they were one market. They were doing different things with the products, right? They might even have different products. But now they're communicating together. That makes a market. Where you don't see these markets, for example, really, really clearly for me, is between education and pharmaceutical industry. 2 different markets. You could even say between material science and life science, 2 different markets, because there's no communication going on. Oh, maybe they know each other down the pub, but there are exceptions, right? Even if you looked at things like cars, I've been to America. I used to go to America every 4 or 5 weeks. I don't talk about cars with them. You couldn't say that the market for cars in the US and the market for cars in the UK is the same. Maybe look at Japan. You can see scientists talking and communicating every day. And scientists communicate and talk using Twitter, but Japanese aren't involved in that. They're outside of it. It's a separate market through choice of communication and language. So there are lots of these sort of boundaries to it that are going to happen through communication. So you're looking for where groups of people communicate to see if your groups are actually larger or smaller than the markets you were looking at. They're not sales territories, but they can be geographic. So what companies tend to do is go, well, I'm looking at the market for Connecticut and Maine and Rhode Island and everything else. And they start to sell, I don't know, Microskip or something. And then they'll say, yep, good. And then 3i will turn up from Denver and they'll go, hey, what happened? And that's because you're actually looking at the US market being served and you've decided to look at a sales territory. Be very careful at assessing based on sales territories. It can work really well to look at markets at subsidiary levels because they've got larger responsibilities and sometimes the markets can be nicely separated. France is a pretty separate market. DACH is a pretty separate market. The other thing with markets is they're defined by jobs to be done, right? Think about Kindle and think about books, right? The job to be done is reading a book. You can use paper or you can use digital, right? They're the same sort of thing. So there was a really nice story about jobs to be done, which is, I think, a good illustrator for this, which is McDonald's wanted to grow share of milkshakes. They wanted to sell more milkshakes. And they said, oh, let's make it thicker. Let's change the flavor. Let's make it cooler. Let's make the cups bigger. Then they talked to this consultancy and they said, yeah, you're not competing against other people's milkshakes. You're competing against cereal bars, oat bars, sandwiches. And the answer was that 80% of milkshakes were being consumed in the morning for breakfast. The market they were in was the people filling up with food before they arrive at work market. They weren't in the milkshake market. So just understand that the jobs to be done is actually really the important bit of defining the market. And then you've got indirect and direct competitors. I had someone I was working with, they said, oh, we don't really have any competitors. I said, how else would you do it? We'd do it this way. Okay, they're your competitors. It's pretty straightforward, and that helps with the jobs to be done bit. And that's why it's critical for you to make a thing that says, my market is addressing people like this. These are the players in my market. These are direct. And you start to build your own definition for your market. It's self-defining. So how do you size it? Well, you can buy market reports. And I've never found a market report. These are $5,000 to $10,000 and people will write these things. I've never found a market report that truly gives me what I was defining. Here's an example. We bought one for a high content market. And in high content, we were working with a company that made screening systems. And in high content was flow cytometry devices. But we didn't know if that was 10%, 20%. It didn't say anything about mix. And therefore, we could have had a large error to it. So actually, I prefer to do this myself. And you can do it in multiple different ways. So first one is, maybe there's a market and there are 10 companies that buy the thing we sell. We've just come out, there are 10 companies that buy it. Well, we can work out the key. There are 10 companies, we worked out key purchasing accounts, there are 10. And we think they do 200 a year. Well, they're bigger, so we think they do 500, and they're smaller, we think they do 100. You just model it. Just work out what your model is going to be. The next one is to basically just work out your known competitors' estimates. So I used to compete with a company called Andel. I would go onto a website called Companies House and pull their report. I can look at their financial accounts. I can see their revenue. I can see their split between countries. It was all completely freely available, as is all this information for pretty much every company in the European Union. Not that the UK is anymore, but anyone can access it. But I can go and look at my competitors' size and market shares and so on. And if they don't give me revenue, it means they fall below a certain standard. Sometimes the standards in the UK are like 10 million pounds and 50 people, or X amount of credit, or whatever it needs to be. But you can roughly work it out. And if you can't work it out from that, if they're less than 10 million, you can normally work it out by accounts accruable and so on. So you can work out your competitors and you can work out how much of them you think are in there. Oh, I think 30% of them's this. You work it out. You can count reps. You can go, oh, look, they've got 5 salespeople in the territory and their reasonable quota is, I don't know, $2 million each. Again, your quota is going to vary by what you're selling. If it's an end user product, maybe it's $1 million, maybe $2 million. Maybe if you're OEM, maybe it's 10, 15, 20 million. That's going to change what you're doing. So you can work out your market size that way. The other way of looking at it is alternative technology. This is the same as Kindle going, people read books. How many people read books? Half the planet. How many of them would change? I don't know, 2%. We did this recently. We looked at it and there was a piece of software called Metamorph. And how many licenses? I had 10,000. How many people are likely to change that system in the next 5 years? What's the rate per year? How many do you think we can get out of it? What's the opportunity that's there? And the critical bit is you're going to size this in a sort of wisdom of crowds way. And you might do 2 or 3 of them to get your estimates right. And it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be logical and defendable and debatable. You're going to talk to people about this. And at the end of it, you're going to end up with a size of market. And critically, if you've done it the right way, you'll also know what your competitors have got, which is really important for the next bit. Market share. So market share is like easy. It's like what you sold divided by market size. That's a pretty straightforward one. But there's a couple of other things to consider here. The next one is what's the growth in the market? Look, there's always more money coming into the world. GDP is going up. So your minimum growth, unless you're going backwards, 3%. Are you in a popular market? Are you on trend? Is it going up? Let's think about COVID. COVID, if you were selling COVID test machine, went up pretty big, didn't it? It's probably chilling a little bit now, but the growth in that market would have been phenomenal. What's happening in the industries or the worlds around you that is driving that change? You know, what's driving this compound annual growth rate to mean that you've got more money that's available? Because you might just need to sit in that market and all ships rise on a rising tide and you just get some more cash. I remember a company once that we worked with were like, yeah, we go up 20% a year. Market CAGR is 25. You're not doing that good. So you got to look at where you're going to get your extra money from. Is it from the growth of what's going on? And if you're going to win, where are you going to take share from? So you better be able to defend, well, we're going to take it from these products. They're getting old. We think we can attack the channels here. We think we can get the growth. This is how we think we can win. If we win, they lose, or is it growth? And there's a nice series of kind of tables and charts for this called MECOs. We might do a webinar on to explain how to use them later on. But you want to really map out what the companies are made up from, who's got the share, and where it can be taken from. And you can do that nicely by kind of Europe, America, Asia, and so on. The next thing is like, where's it easiest to take share? People go on these kind of like crusades against other. We're gonna destroy this company. We're gonna take them. It's like, well, you might just be spinning your wheels. Maybe move to a different market. I mean, if you know your market size and share and information, you've now got the data to go, we've had enough here. Let's just ease off a bit and whatever and take what we can. Let's not worry about it. You can do that if you want, but where is it easiest to take share? Don't worry about your main competitor. Worry about the other ones. Worry about side bits. Worry about consuming the growth. They're the things you should be thinking about when you get to this level. Now, I said earlier, this is about controlling the being better part. Everyone wants to be better. We're all on a march to be better and do better things. But what I want you to start thinking about is what are the controls and which bit are you going to choose to be better? And you might choose to do lots of things. Just don't do all things. I see this with lots of startup companies. They want to do all things. And lots of companies do all things. And do you know what happens? When they cut the things that weren't really on focus. So don't do all things, do the focus things. That's the really easy bit for this. So what are the controls? Well, this is a model called PPH from Franklin and Associates. They're a company based in the US, very, very smart, specialize in changing channels and setups like that. Look them up. They have some great papers on PPH. This is my interpretation of it, which is pretty sales and marketing oriented, but it makes it a bit easier for me to get. We know our market, 100 million. We know our revenue, 5 million. Two known things, two things that we know. Okay, but I have product coverage. So now I've got 70% of the market. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't have this model. I don't have that model. I don't have this ability to do things. So actually my $100 market is now actually $70 million. So I lost a little bit because I don't have all the products for it. That's a pretty straightforward thing to do. That's what we make, right? Presence is a mix of both channel coverage and feet on street kind of thing, mixed together with quote rate. And we'll talk about this. Like how many times are your customers seeing a viable pitch? So people in the market, so we had 70 million. How much of those people are we actually going to see? And the last thing is hit rate. What are our deals won? And really, really critically, deals won that went to completion. Not, they lost funding. They'll do it in a couple of years. They stopped talking to me. Not that. How many deals did you win And how many deals did you lose to a competitor selling something in the market definition that you had, right? Really critically. Now, what's the problem here is we're all pretty short-sighted and we tend to think of the market at the hit rate with the gap of the hit rate. We forget we didn't see people and we forget that we didn't make things. But now, if we look at these things, we've now got controls. We can up our product coverage, make new products. We can up our presence, change our channels, do different strategies, and we can work on our hit rate. We can sell better, right? Not always sales' fault to sell better, by the way, defending the salespeople, but it's also not always marketing's fault on presence, by the way. So we'll talk a little bit in detail now about these things. But who owns what? There's a really big, easy thing to say, well, product management own this. And so, look, product is debated by product managers and senior management teams that sign off on it, and funding and things like that. So this is owned by product management, and it's owned by senior managers and people in departments who are making the decisions that are going to kind of flow through. So salespeople can feed into that. Your Marcom team won't be that invested at this point, but product management and information from the field should drive product. Presence is partly product management because they're going to define the go-to-market along with sales directors, marketing directors, and so on, because sales go-to-market's the critical bit here. And then hit rate, people tend to think is salespeople's fault, but it's actually sales, product management, marketing, support services. A lot goes in hit rate. But what we know is we can change these things. So let's have a look at what happens when we change things. So if we had product gaps, let's make a new product, and we're going to add 10% to our product coverage. Well, what happens? Well, we fill up our presence tank, and now we have 60% of a larger pot. And then we hit up our hit rate pot because we hit up our presence, so we fill up the hit rate, and now we deliver more revenue. And that's what happens. So if we make more products, we get more people to see them, and we win more deals, right? We say the same percentage of deals, but we have more deals to win. So product coverage is an interesting one. So what are your tactics here? Well, make new products or line extensions, right? New features, not differentiators. This is a really interesting one. For example, a company said to me, oh, we're making new software, so we're going to get loads more business. And I went, oh, you're going to increase your hit rate. And because their product was an instrument, and software on an instrument doesn't increase product coverage. It's more likely to increase hit rate. Because you're going, well, people love the software. Well, where did they see the software? Well, they saw the software when they did the demo. Well, okay, you needed that's at the end. That's not at the beginning. If you make a product that fundamentally achieves more for the customer by achieving more of the job to be done, then you're making it better. If you're making it easier for a customer to be convinced, you're achieving hit rate. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a bit weird. Then you've got things like market service, changing market service items. You could do software service. You can make the customer's life so easy that now you've actually added service into the product. But the big thing here is, if you want to change the business by changing product coverage in this market, products take 18 to 36 months. And people are kind of like, it's really easy on the outside looking in. But if you're involved in this stuff, it takes a long time to make stuff. Not only does it take a long time, you fail a lot, and engineering is expensive. So it's really high spend and really high risk. So much so that this was actually written in one of the reports of Roper, the company I work with. When they acquired companies, their strategy was to look at markets where companies had high product coverage. And that meant we don't have to pay to fix product problems. We can focus all of our efforts on channels and hit rate. And that way round, we're not going to have a heavy investment once we bought the company, right? So that's why you get this kind of product coverage. So it's good. You can get new products, and at some point you're going to need to, but also just understand it's going to take you time and it's expensive. What about presence? Presence is really weird because presence is feet on street, and you may be having direct salespeople or distributors have more direct salespeople. That would be an example of doing a better presence job. But the other thing is made up of is quote rate. And understand your distributors don't quote your product all the time. Why? Well, sometimes they think they're going to lose. Sometimes they just don't go through with the process. They just go, I'm busy, kind of got a big deal going on, got this on. We used to sell cameras, and our distributors had choices. They could sell my competitors' direct equivalent model. So now I'm paying for their attention. right? That's a pretty bad situation. So now I've got quote rate coming out as this, how many times was my product taken out of the bag instead of my competitor's product? So your presence, how many interactions you're going to have, is actually a really, really critical thing. And you can make major, major moves in businesses because of presence. And most businesses that have problems with presence. It's the primary reason. If you're sat there going, my product's great, everything's great, I don't understand it, your product doesn't even need to be that good if you have great presence, because you're everywhere. And this is why you can see large organizations, you say, like, why are people still buying this nonsense? Because of presence, because it's there, because of weight and time in market. So you've got a lot of stuff that's coming in presence. So again, we can see if we increase presence, we bump it up, we bump up hit rate, and we deliver revenue. That's what happens all the way through. What are my presence controls? Well, I can change go-to-market strategy. I can not demo. I can do web demos. I can have showrooms. I can change my sales team. I can do web sales. I can have live chat. I can make everything easier and different in the way that I actually sell products and market products. I can do channel development and distribution tactics. You know, in America, you can do things like spivs and spiffs, where you incentivize salespeople to sell more things in your distribution channel. But normally you work out deals and you work out ways to grow. You can also have some pretty good come to Jesus meetings with distributors to say, look, this isn't good enough. We need more. Look at my PPH. We're missing loads. Why? I need your help to see why we're missing all this business. Lead generation, marketing, and brand building exists here. It does. I want you to understand that it's not a question of marketing doing more or just advertising and stuff like this. That isn't there. That is supporting the actions of feet on streets in order to have conversations. Presence is about conversations about product. It's not about ads or campaigns or how many clicks we got. You can do other things like customer nurture and recycling customers, and so all of that stuff is in there. But a decent change to a channel strategy is going to take you 9 to 18 months. If you change a distributor, you're going to make 9 to 18 months to do something like that. You're going to change the way you sell. For it really to kick in, you're looking at 9 to 18 months. Now, the other thing that's worth knowing about presence is we can go away and calculate with product managers what our product coverage is. And hit rate, I can go in the CRM and I can go count them. Some of you may even have lovely graphs. Probably need a little bit of a calculation to it. But I can work those two out. With presence, I can kind of go, oh, they've got 3 reps, we've got 2, whatever you want to do at that level. But normally, you use a calculator to solve for presence. And what you normally find out is the market's a lot bigger and you're just not seeing the deals. The last one is hit rate. And as I said earlier, hit rate isn't like, you know, I had 40 opportunities and I won 5. Well, yeah, he disappeared. He was never going to buy it in the first place because you qualified it badly. So they have to end up with a transaction. If you had 10 ghosting you, they never got back to you. 10 of the two of the 10 people that ghosted you probably bought from someone else. They just didn't have the heart to tell you, right? But you're looking at only transactions that go through. So what's a good number? Less than 25% on hit rate means you're turning up to the opening of an envelope. You're basically as good as a shop or a web portal. I want you to take that one to heart. That's a real hard one to tell, right? If you're less than 25% and you're actually looking at true converted sales, then you've got a problem there. That's you're running a shop. If you're over 75%, there's no risk in your business. And the risk in your business is basically that people are collecting orders and people are just sitting there servicing demand at a very high level, and you're missing a boat ton of opportunity, and you should be failing more. What is interesting is if you can really take a company, and it's really possible, and we've done it, is you take a company from say 30 to 40%, that's how you push through. And that's going to deliver you revenue. Straightforward. You increase your hit rate, you win more deals. And this comes from a multiple number of things, mainly focus and working on the right deals and working correctly, not being more charming, trust me. Right? A lot of you work with me on these things. It's not about being more charming. It's about understanding what the customer is wanting and taking them through the sales process correctly. I think that works really well. But there's multiple things that make up hit rate. The last thing I want to say on this slide is, I don't know if any of you noticed, but the green chunk for hit rate is bigger. So we grew revenue, but why did it grow more Well, we did it on hit rate. Is that because hit rate's better? And the answer is no. It's because the hit rate number is 30%. And actually, the weakest control you have by percentage will deliver you the most revenue. So if presence was 20% and I took it up to 30, that would deliver me more for a change there than the hit rate change by 10%. I'll explain a little bit more. But what makes up hit rate? So the first things on hit rate really is product differentiation, your software, your box, how it all felt, the blue LEDs that flashed around it like it was Knight Rider. Whatever it needs to be, your product differentiation and the experience of buying it and using it, that's a real good differentiator on hit rate. Oh, it looks awesome. I bought it. Brand is critical at this point. Brand doesn't really help you with the people you didn't meet. So it doesn't help your presence, right? It helps you in references and key opinion leaders and all this work. They are really there to help you win hit rate. They have some bits otherwhere, but really you're using references at the point of, hey, we're now talking, I want to develop you to a deal. Sales enablement tools, little calculators, making the PowerPoints, making the packs, holding seminars for them, talks, equipment, whatever you need to do to help your people sell helps hit rate, right? Doesn't help presence, doesn't help the other stuff. It's just straight in here. After sales service, again, if you have a really good service team and a really good way of making this work and making the customers feel loyal and everything, it doesn't matter if you never met them, which is what happens in presence. I can't tell customers in Japan that your service is awesome when they've never heard of you. So it helps at hit rate. And then sales training and coaching. Again, really, I've spoken many times of Eddie Val and the Strongman program. For me, that was the one that just made us have an ability to review opportunities, understand what was going on, and run the deal correctly. And that's why we do some training on that, or just look up Strongman Solutions Selling on Amazon and get Eddie's book. The best thing about hit rate is hit rate changes take 3 to 6 months. We can quite literally jump in. People can train your sales team. You can get new reps, hire them, sort them all out. And it's the lowest possible tactic, but you can win hit rate really, really quickly. The difference comes if you've only got 40 deals in front of you, hit rate means nothing, right? Because you need to have hundreds of deals. Then you're looking at a problem of presence, right? So, what you're able to do with sales training and making these things work, which is really feeding from your marketing and product management teams and so on, that's going to change your hit rate. And that's probably the first thing you want to deal with. And this is why sales teams can, with promotions and work like that, they can hold the fort and they can fight from the trenches better earlier, but they're going to run out of steam. Your sales team can carry a problem in the market for probably 6 to 9 months before really they need the ammo of channel and new products coming down the pipe to help support them and push through. So hit rate's another really important thing. And you've got the choice over which one you're going to put in. And again, you've got to think to yourself, well, okay, where am I going to put my efforts? I can put my efforts into product, but is the product okay? Why? Maybe we just need to see more deals. Maybe we need more swings of the bat, which is a presence thing. Go get a distributor in China. Go get a distributor, change your distributor in China. Whatever it needs to be, change your distributors you're working with. Get more sales reps. Work out what you're doing. So is it swings of the bat with presence? Or is it the number of swings of the bat or the quality of the swing of the bat, which is your hit rate, which is the responsibility of everyone. No one gets to go, I'm in sales, I just knock them in when they come close to the goal. This is a team game and it runs across multiple departments, which is why I've said many times in my book and so on, if your heads of sales and marketing don't get on, then it's going to be very, very hard for you. And I'm talking for like marketing as being all encompassing of communications and product. On this page, I should say, we have a calculator. There are a calculator that will allow you to put in things like your size of your market and your revenue, and it'll calculate what you're missing and calculate things like coverage if you don't need coverage, and it'll calculate your all the other bits and pieces that you want for it. And it'll also tell you your change. If I up this by 1%, how much would it add to my revenue in this market? So that's really about understanding the opportunity by looking at the market and understanding the controls, whether you do more products, you increase your presence, or you increase your hit rate. That's where it's kind of coming together here. If you want this calculator, please send me a direct message in LinkedIn and I will get it to you probably at the beginning of next week. But if you send me that, we'll get you it along with a video that explains how to work it. So if you're interested in doing more of this stuff, we can kind of work it out. So that's the last thing here is the calculator. Actually, the one more thing I should say is that I said a little bit earlier, I said, well, look, the hit rate went up more. There was a bigger bit of green showing revenue. And the bit of green showing revenue, well, why was that bigger? And this comes down to having the most impact. Like they say, the world will improve not because of really smart people, but because of lazy people trying to do things easily. And our job is to increase revenue and become more profitable, not necessarily increase revenue. We got to make money. That's our job in business. Our job is to do this by doing the least amount of things. And you're going to run off and try and do all the different things in your business. Try and do a few well. And how do you decide which one to do? Well, it's basically 1% of change will have the impact of the inverse of the percentage. Okay? So which I say, if you had 40% product coverage and you increased it to 41, 1 over 40 will give you a 2.5% increase in revenue. But if you had 10% product coverage in your market and you increase it to 11, that will increase your revenue by 10%. And it's about attacking each of those controls: product coverage, your presence, your channel, right? And then your hit rate, whichever of those is the smallest, having a change on that will drive the biggest change. You should probably change all of them, right? You should be working on all of them. But think of them as initiatives that are controlling levers between your revenue and your market size. And that's what you're looking for all the way through. Be careful. And then remember, hit rate's cheap to change. Look, you can spend like $10,000 on a coaching program with training for a sales rep, and you probably deliver another $250,000 to the bottom line, right? That's pretty cheap. Try making a product. If you're making a product, to give you some ideas of making a product, if you're making a product that you think you're going to sell $5 to $10 million a year, and you're going to have 3 to 5 million or 3 to 5 or 10 years of life in it, that product's probably going to cost you $5 million in engineering, right? There's different ratios depending on what you're making, but that's an idea. It's going to cost you a lot. Your engineers have to do something, right? That's another thing, but they need to do the right things, which is why we have product managers. So that's the last thing on controlling this. I think the last thing is you come back here is just start to think about which of these you want to change, which bits you feel you can change. As a sales guy, you're not going to change the product coverage. As a sales guy, you can ask with help and work on presence and hit rate. They're the things you control. If you're in product management, I want you to understand you not only are designing the product, but you have an impact and you control in partnership with sales, the presence, and you have a responsibility to hit rate as well, all the way through. Okay, so look, this is the last of it. I have 3 more adverts. I think I'm allowed adverts, right? The one, I wrote a book called Sales Disc. It's on Amazon, Sales Disc like that. It's on Amazon. If you want to listen to it, it's on Audible and Apple. I don't know, it's like $20 and you can expense it. So it's $20. If you quite literally, when Amazon have had their chunk off it, I can buy a drink, right? So if you want to buy me a drink, a non-alcoholic lager, if you've probably saw my last post on it, then do that, right? So if you want to do that, that would be nice. You don't have to, but it would be nice. The other things I want you to know is about the webinars that are coming up. And I would really like you to just register now, because we go through all the stress of how many people are coming, right? So we got one, which is going to be done by Dan Brooks, who's a senior partner here. He's one of the partners in the company. He's doing AI Unleashed, definitions, limitations, and possibilities. So you might have seen some like webinars before about, oh, isn't it great? It does a drawing, it does this. We're actually talking about how you practically would use it in a business in your everyday life. None of the jazz around it. I did an invite for LinkedIn, but no, proper stuff, right? And then we've got one on I'm doing, which is about who should you hire into your situation, right? Should you hire a graduate, a PhD? Maybe you want to convert someone from an FAS. Or do you go off and get someone from a similar market and hire them in? Or do you go and hire a market legend and pay them a lot and get big changes fast? And there are pros and cons to all of these things, and we have a kind of an analytical way of looking at. They're both online. So I think Ravi's put them in the notes there. You can go, but please register for them now, because that helps us. Even if you're not free, it doesn't matter. You get the video afterwards. It'd be lovely. So I've talked for 36 minutes at the moment, and it's your turn. If you've got any questions, if you want to ask anything now, I will be sat on. It was a pretty quick one, that one. I don't know how many we had on, but it would be lovely. If you've got any questions, or if you just want to say hi and bye, or even if you want to tell me the weather, where you are. I think half the world is very, very hot. And actually, not even half the world is very hot. Most of the world is very, very hot, and the UK is just boring. That's what we've got at the moment. The UK is just sort of miserable, and I don't know, 75 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that, 18 degrees Celsius, a bit rainy. There is a delay. Remember, if you enjoyed it, you could say, I enjoyed it. If it was marginally palatable, you could say it was marginally palatable. This is why I've got to wait 15 seconds and no one says anything. And doing a webinar is a little bit like slowly going mad because no one's talking. I got to thank you for your time. We've got one in for that. They might get some other bits and pieces with that. So we're going to sit here. It is 7 minutes past 4. You might have questions. I'm going to sit here for 3 minutes. Thank you to LinkedIn user. Weather's nice in Heidelberg. That's nice. Thank you. Thank you to Phil. Cloudy London. There we are. Thank you. Nice seminar. Good. Lovely. Someone's saying here, the most challenging seems to be for the present. It is. It is most of the problem. And it is where you really have to work out how you look big. So there are some tactics on that. If some of you want to talk to us about that, we can do. How do you increase this without headcount? Oh, that's a really good question. You look big. And there are ways. I don't know if anyone remembers seeing the film The Crow. I like The Crow with Brandon Lee. Anyway, in The Crow, the bad guy says, I want to start a fire so damn big that gods realize we're alive. And one of the fastest ways you can increase presence is basically by just appearing like you're everywhere. By really putting your effort and minimizing all of your busy work to basically use phone tactics to get around everywhere, to do very structured visits to places. You can do that. Again, it depends on how you sell stuff, but that's how we would kind of do it. Is you basically need to limit your kind of nonsense, Excel sheet work and stuff like that, and really hit the phones hard and have a program that connects to it and get in front of people. That's one short-term tactic. The other thing is, again, using sub-distributors, trying to work out like that, using tactics to get in front of people. Simplify your selling as well. I mean, stop this nonsense of quotes taking half an hour, right? Some of that stuff it just seems to be pretty pointless and comes up. Basically, make your life ridiculously efficient and try and have as many communications as you can. Hold events. I saw one earlier. Just get people talking to you. Don't turn up at trade shows and expect the best, right? Turn up at trade shows with planned meetings that are going to happen. Yeah, and you have someone who can kind of get the rest of it. Right. It has hit 10 minutes past. We've done 40 minutes. Again, please register for the next ones. Please, if you want it, buy a book that buys me a drink. I am going to the pub tonight with some of my son's friends' dads. So it's a dad drink at the pub night. So that would be good. Brilliant. Yeah, get the engineers to write macros and automate the Excel nonsense. Yeah, I think there's, I'm going to do a webinar on just focus for people. And you would be horrified if you do a timesheet and look at the nonsense that you do and the distractions that you get into and the meetings for meeting's sakes that you get to. And you all know it's kind of there. All right, please. Someone asked for the calculator. I'm not going to remember. You have to direct message me and link into me and all the other stuff. My apologies. My brain's like a sieve. I do a lot of different things, and I went to university, and that probably wasn't good for me. Lovely. Thank you very much for your time, people. I'm going to end the broadcast now, and you can get it on LinkedIn as you need it. All right. Thanks very much. Bye now.